Oh, there we go.
This meeting is being live streamed. Look at us go.
All right.
All right, so
And recording.
stand by. Record on this computer. Ship it.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Redeemed Legion podcast. This is episode 5, and we have our second guest ever on the podcast. We're very excited about that. We're going to get to intros here in just a second. We're just going to do a couple housekeeping things real quick. For our listeners out there, our social media continues to grow, and that is awesome. We love that. It allows us the opportunity to reach more people for Christ, and that's what we're here to do. So please, if you're listening, follow us on social media and help us grow that reach. We have merch. So if you go to redeemedlegion.com, there's a shop page, and these hats that we are all wearing are available on the website. So go there, check it out. There is more of that to come. There's going to be some t-shirts, maybe some stickers. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the hats are available right now, and they are in limited supply. So head over there. And we have our first live event happening next week. It is next Thursday, I think. It's November 16th. It is going to be in Thrall, Texas, which is about an hour east of Austin. So if you are in Central Texas, hit us up. We'd love to see you there. And if you're not in Central Texas and you want to fly in for it, still hit us up. We'd still love to see you there. It's going to be a good time. So we are going to kick this podcast off. Our guest today is Matt. Welcome, Matt.
How you doing?
I'm good. We are happy to have you here. Little bit of background. Matt and I have known each other for a while. Matt was my very first fire service instructor when I got into the fire service when I was very young. I'm now rapidly approaching 40, so Matt and I have known each other quite a while. Matt's been a great mentor to me, and gone through some stuff together. So happy to have you here, buddy. And we're gonna kind of start from the top. So tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Central Ohio. Lived in Columbus for a little while, and then moved out to the Sunbury area when I was in 8th grade, and pretty much been here ever since. A little bit more rural. Got on the fire department when I was like 18, 19, because of my wife. Friend of mine got on, and then I went on a blind date, and her dad was a firefighter, and he's like, "Hey, you should look into that fire department thing." And I thought, that's kind of cool, and she's kind of cute, so that's probably a good thing, getting good grace with him. And so I did, and pretty much from that point on, it's like that's all I want to do is go to the firehouse and ride on fire trucks. So did that, and ended up marrying her, and we've been together 30 some years, and been married for 26, and got 3 kids, and been on the fire department. I hunt, fish, and love to be outside, and that's about it. Pretty simple.
Is it though?
Pretty simple. I teach a lot. Teach at the career center, the county career center, and I've taught for some other programs and things like that. But it's really about it.
Excellent. What? So you said you've been married for 26 years?
Yep. 26 years.
And obviously, okay. And you met your wife through, you kind of told that story. Talk about marriage a little bit. How has your marriage journey been?
I am like one of those guys that everybody probably hates, because my wife is about the most laid back, squared away chick on the entire planet. She is, and I've told so many people, it's like I'm married today because of her, not because of me. I'm a complete idiot all the time. She's just super forgiving and easy to get along with, and she's one of those kind of people that if you can't get along with her, it's your fault, not hers, because she just as laid back as they get. We've had 3 kids, or got 3 kids. To be honest with you, I love her more today, more in love with her today than I was the day I married her. And it's just, from the things that we've been through and raising the kids and, that whole journey. And it's not that they were hard. It was just, you got to work through things and figure out and that kind of stuff. So she's a unbelievable woman.
Yeah, that's amazing. What, there's so many guys out there, especially in the line of work that you're in and Drew's still in, and that Pete and I were in for a long time, that doesn't seem to happen for, and I know you give a lot of credit to your wife and things like that, but why do you think it is that so many marriages fall apart, particularly in public safety?
Yeah, I a few years, I shouldn't say a few years, probably 10, 15 years ago. I wouldn't say we were going through a hard time, but like, she's one of those people that she doesn't say a whole lot. She doesn't complain about anything. So if she brings something to my attention, she's thought about it, and it's a deal, So I think from my side of it, if she's bringing something up, then I got to pay attention to it because she's so laid back on everything. But probably 10, 15 years ago, she came to me and she's like, hey, we're not spending as much time together. And, these kids are going to be gone here for long. And when they're gone, me and you better have something in common. And her just being, aware enough to say, hey, down the road, it's going to look different than it does right now. So from that point on, like if I was on the phone and talking to her, I didn't get off the phone from talking to her. Like nobody was going to call that I needed to hang up with my wife from, regardless of what she was telling me. And, to us in the fire service community or whatever, we're so used to dealing with big deals. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, somebody's having a heart attack and you're going to call me and it's like, well, you didn't empty the dishwasher. And it's like, get over it, but to her, that's a deal in her world. So just recognizing, I think that, she has a say in it. And, along with that, we just we made time for each other. I have a business on the side from the firehouse, and no matter what, we made time, and it didn't have to be anything crazy. It's not like we went on trips or whatever. It's just, we always went to lunch once a week, at least. We'd always go on a little date, just me and her time. And that was all her. It wasn't me. I can tell you right now, I was not smart enough to recognize, see that. But I can tell you, my kids are grown now, and me and her spend more time together now and do things together now that I would have never thought that I would be doing 15 years ago. We just enjoy each other. We always have something to talk about. But I think just recognizing that as much as our life is a big deal, and the things that we do and, the runs that you go on, it's like, I was on this fire or I was on this call and this happened. There's things that are still important to her, and, just kind of working through that and understanding that you may think you're a big deal, but you really still got to take the trash out. You really still got to empty the dishwasher, and she wants to tell you about her day too, and that's just the way it is. It's a two-way street. So
yeah,
a little thing that my mom always said, I can remember her saying this from the time I was little, said, marriage isn't 50-50. 50-50 will get you divorced. It's 100-100. If you're not both pulling hard 100%, you ain't gonna make it. And that's just the way it has to be. And, like I say, I can remember her telling me that from the time I was little. So sometimes, in Heather's case, she had to pull really hard for a lot of times. So it's not easy living with me.
So Matt, were you both believers when y'all got married or when y'all met? What's that walk look like for y'all?
I think we both understood, our faith, and we both understood that, but I wouldn't say we were active, either one of us. I mean, we both went to church as a kid. We both understood, but I wouldn't say we were committed. She was a lot longer than I was. I think her faith walk has been, a lot more consistent than mine has. And it was when she started taking the kids to church when they were little. And it was really a guilt thing for me that I went with them for a long time. I just didn't want to be that dad that didn't go with them. It's like I didn't really have I wouldn't say I had a good relationship. And it was just more out of obligation. And then, things, there, as with everybody, there's always something that kind of triggers us to get our stuff together and do what we need to do. And, I was no different. A good friend of mine's son was accidentally killed, and, we were real close. And, it was one of those times that, Heather called me and she's, tells me what's happened. And I'm, obviously you're devastated because these kids are young. I think he was 10, and it was just a pure accident. Just an accident. And I'll never forget I was at the firehouse that night, and I was in the back building. Brendan, you know where I'm talking about, at 91s. And, I was sitting back there, as a ball of my eyes out. And the question, I just kept asking why, why, like, this kid's innocent, you know what I mean? It was just one of those fluke things. And man, I can feel it like it was literally 5 minutes ago. I don't know if you've ever seen those weighted blankets that they're selling now. It felt like just a big, heavy blanket, like a big, warm, heavy blanket came over top of me. And like I could feel it, it wasn't just like a feeling, like I could feel it. And it just, and I'm not a big believer in, well, God said this to me and everything. Like, I really struggle with that, because there's a lot of times I think people are just, no, that's really just what you want to hear. And it's not really God talking. Yep. But this was just that moment that, that it just came to me that this boy's death was going to bring a lot of people to God. And I was one of them, and it just kind of worked out into my brain and my thought process that, although this child is gone, I'm going to bring home so many more because of this. And, shortly after that, I went and got baptized, and, been trying to figure it out even more ever since. But, fortunately, I was really good friends with the family, and, me and the dad, I went back, I was coaching his son's football team, that fall. So this happened in the summer and that fall. And I just really felt like I needed to share that with them. So after practice one night, I just asked them if they could take a walk with me, and we went to the other side of the field. And I told them that. I said, I think your loss it's not only saved my life, but it's going to save, many people as well. And, there's a lot of times when bad things happen or when death comes along, I just try and remember that, maybe this message isn't for you, it's for somebody else. And although you have to be the bearer of it and you gotta carry it, it may not be intended for you. And that was kind of the deal with them. And, we all sat there and hugged and cried, and we're great friends to this day. Because of it, we were really close before, but it's a different friendship when, like I believe if he didn't die, I don't know where I'd be right now. I hope that I would have found this place, but I don't know that I would have, at least not like, in a way that is good. But I mean, it's tragedy, but I believe that the kid saved my life. I believe that was God's way of getting a hold of me, you know.
Matt, I'd like to unpack that a little bit more if we can.
Yeah.
I think that many people find a different direction in that same tragedy, right? Like, something happens. We all know, especially in our line of work, we've seen it firsthand multiple times, or we know someone that has, where this, tragedy befalls, and they're like, God, like, how could you do this? And then
Right.
they go the other way. So I'm curious if you could kind of map that out a little bit. Like, so you like, loss happened, terrible, tragedy occurred, and then you had this moment at the firehouse. You didn't, I assume, just like fall to your knees in prayer, and in that moment you're like, oh my gosh, like, right? So like, how did you in your head work through that, like, from tragedy to faith?
I think I had to process it a little bit. I knew what I felt, and I believed what I felt. I mean, I was, I'd had enough. I'd had enough of the gospel spoke to me at an early age, and that I knew what that was, and it took a little while, because, like I say, I was just so skeptical about somebody saying, "Well, God spoke to me." You'd hear that, and it's like, you're a quack. I mean, I don't mean to be rude about it, but there's just so many people. It's like, God didn't tell you that. You're an idiot. And so I think I had to walk through my own comfort with knowing that this is right. And I can't really explain it. It was just such an overwhelming feeling that night that there was no question in my mind as to what happened and what was being said. I think it just took me a little while to figure out how to, structure it in my mind that I understood it, if that makes sense.
It's like an unmistakable presence.
It was an absolute unmistakable presence. Like, I'm not kidding you. I've never had that any other time other than that. Like, I haven't. I mean, I'm one of those people, and Brendan can tell you, I mean, I wear it on my sleeve, whether I'm happy, mad, sad, glad, it doesn't matter. You're going to know it. I don't hide it. I'm not going to stand behind it or anything like that. I'm going to lay it out there. So, it wasn't like this overwhelming, fall to my knees. I was just like, whoa, that was weird. That, like, I got it. I'm on it, and then I just started working through, reaching out to the people that I knew I could trust, and talking to them, and a couple really close friends. I said, hey, man, I think I'm going to get baptized. And they're like, that's awesome. Let's do that. And my best friend, Kevin, he baptized me that summer.
That's awesome.
So
where did you get baptized? At a church or out somewhere, or
at the church?
At church. What kind of baptism? If you don't mind me asking, like immersion or
yeah. Yep. Immersion.
Did you debate or were there other options, like, discussed as far as immersion or anything else? Because sometimes immersion can be difficult for some people to, especially like that were maybe baptized a different way at a young age, as a baby or whatever, and then have to be immersed. I'm curious if you wrestled with any of that.
My wife is she was not immersed, but she still feels very passionate that, because I was baptized just like anybody else.
Yep.
And I'm certainly not going to debate it, but no, we just did it at the church, at the baptismal that they have there at the church. So
it's a pretty amazing story, man. That's
there's times that I think it is, and there's times that I think, boy, what kind of knucklehead did you have to be that's what it took to get your attention? I mean, that's the part that I shake my head at. It's like, wow.
Yeah, so, but I think not to compare ourselves to other people, but, I regardless of the tragedy that happened, like there's tragedies that happen every day, right? And how many people aren't willing to recognize that God is reaching out. He's always reaching for us, right? And it comes in different ways. And it's not to say that it has to be a tragedy. It certainly isn't all the time, but to be open to it and have the ability to realize that something as awful as that happening can have those positive consequences in God reaching people through it is a pretty remarkable thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, even the opportunity that I had to, and for us with that family to be that close, still to this day, I think that was the part that really moved me as well, is, to give them something, he's a really great friend of mine. I love their family. I love their kids. And to be able to share that with them, like, that was hard, man. That was really hard to tell a parent that just lost a child that, although I know you're grieving, there's some benefit to it, and it took a while, because, like, I was bawling my eyes out. We're standing in the middle of a football field, and I'm just crying like a baby. But I feel so blessed to have that understanding of it, because there's been so many other times, my dad passed, or, and you have other family and friends pass along. There's just more of a comfort to it, I guess. I don't, if that makes sense. It's just, I just feel really confident that, I just talked to a good friend of ours, just passed away last week. And I was talking to another guy about it. And I said, sometimes if you don't understand why, then the message isn't for you. It's for somebody else, and it's just yours to carry. I don't know if that's right, Brendan. I'm no biblical scholar. I don't claim to be. I try and do as good as I can, and know that, I fail miserably daily, and probably should be rebaptized at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, to be honest with you. So,
yeah, that's amazing, man. Let's move into the Firehouse a little bit. You are a guy that has been around for a while in the Firehouse. Yeah, I say that nicely.
Right.
But as your faith has grown throughout your fire service career, what does that look like in the Firehouse? Like, we had our last guest on the podcast was a fireman.
Yeah.
And we talked to him about his faith, and he's kind of at the other end of his career from you are, right? He's been in, I think he said, like 3 years, something like that. So as a guy that's been around for a long time and has grown in faith throughout that time, what do you see in the Firehouse? Like, talk to guys that are in firehouses or similar environments that maybe are believers and don't really know how to approach other guys, or don't know what to say in the moment, or things like that.
It's a little bit different, just because I have a little bit of rank, so I get to kind of dictate the day a little bit. From before to now, anybody that knew me, early in my career, it's like, whoa, man, you have changed a bunch. I think just being genuine. I don't walk around the Firehouse with a Bible in my hand. You try and be humble. You try and be who you are. try and watch what you say. I mean, I mean, you guys have been to a firehouse before, and I wouldn't ever sit here and tell you it's like, yep, straight and narrow. That's me. Nope, that's not the case. I got a temper and I got a mouth on me just like anybody else does. And but you try and react to things the best, in a Christian way if you can. I mean, I'm a lot more easy to get along with now than I was earlier in my career. But somebody in a firehouse, I think you just got to be you. You know what I mean? I think if there's one thing that is going to be very easily picked out is you leave one morning and you come back the next morning and you're like, nope, I'm a Christian now. I don't do that. We don't cuss. We don't say nothing. We don't drink. We don't do this. We're Christian now. And it's like, man, it's a lot longer walk than that. I mean, I think a lot of us, we don't all like to think that's the way it's going to go, but that's not reality. So, I mean, I've told a few guys, it's like, look, I'm trying to get my stuff together and, just understand that I'm going to fail and I'm going to stumble and, just try and pick me up when I do. And, we've got a pretty tight group that we share with. I sent a couple guys a message, just ask them to pray for me to keep me from saying something grossly stupid on here. But I mean, just understand it's not a light switch, and when you're in the firehouse, those people know you better than anybody, so you're not going to pull anything over them, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that I try and do. It's like, I'm not going to, you can't sit here and cuss like a sailor and then, okay, everybody bow your head before we do this or whatever. It's like, you're going to lose more people, I think, that way. So just try and be genuine. You are who you are, faults, sins, mistakes, whatever. You are who you are. And they all know it.
Yeah. And I think that's a good, that's a good part of the message, right? Like having the humility and the understanding that we are fallen, we are sinners, and that will never change, right? It says it right in the Bible. We all fall short constantly. But having that, the understanding and the humility, the submission to God to say that out loud, like, yes, I am a sinner. Obviously, we're all doing our best to repent of our sins, right? Because we need to repent of our sins, but also recognizing that we are fallen humans and we will make mistakes constantly, but we submit to God and we ask him to forgive us, for one, and then to change us, right? To change our hearts, to repent from that sin. And being able to say that to guys is important in my experience, right? That, because like you said, being genuine, not putting on some fake show. Everybody sees right through that crap.
Right.
Yeah.
But being genuine and admitting all that stuff and just saying that God's the only one that can change us. You can try as hard as you want, but it's got to be God. Yeah.
And, is along with that, just try. I mean, I try and hang around with other godly men if I'm seeking counsel. I mean, everybody knows who I'm going to go to, and that helps. But yeah, I mean, just be you. I mean, and that could be anything from trying to be a better Christian to being a good father, being a good husband, a leader, a boss, whatever the case may be. Just be you. And I'm not saying that you gotta tell everybody what's on your mind every second, but just be you, be genuine, and be humble about the fact that you're going to screw this up. I mean, I tell my guys all the time, it's like I'm just playing for the benefit of the doubt. I mean, it's just really important. I'm gonna try really hard not to suck at this, but understand I have the 100% ability to pull it off. And it's the same thing with your faith walk. It's like, man, I'm going to try really hard not to suck today, but I don't know if I'm going to make it through breakfast, so I guess that's about the only advice I could give somebody is just be genuine. I think the more humble and more genuine you are, the better chances you have of getting a little bit of the same thing back. So
what you're saying lines up real well actually with the video that we had on TikTok like 2 or 3 days ago, talking about basically men being willing to admit out loud their faults and their struggles. And we had somebody ask very directly, I'm trying to find it to read it, but a guy named Mike literally said, like, why do we need to say it out loud? And yeah, when I first read that, I was like, to me, it felt really obvious. And I'm like, man, I think that a lot of people feel that way, where they're like, why do we need to say it out loud? And I'm curious. I'm leading this into a question to you, Matt, which is like, I think you're speaking our language here. What benefit do you think that there is of you being willing to be genuine, be open, and admit your faults as far as helping reach other men for Christ? Like, what would you say to other men who maybe don't feel like they can be genuine, um, and maybe try to explain what you think the benefits of that are?
I mean, to me, I think if you can't accept what you're doing wrong, you're not going to get buy-in from other people to encourage them and help them. You know what I mean? If every single time I have a conversation, all I do is point out, Pete, all the things that you do wrong, and I'm not doing anything wrong. But we can all clearly look at your faults. You're going to get shut off really, really quick. And I just think that, the first place you got to look at is in the mirror, before you say anything to anybody else. And it comes back to me for me of just, man, I don't want to be judged that hard, so, I try and look at, when somebody brings something to me and, whatever, it's like, man, like, let's pray through this. And I know God will forgive you and, that kind of thing. But it's more of a, I think you're going to get more buy-in from people if you can be genuine with your own faults and not just pointing out theirs. I guess I don't really look at it intentionally to try and do it that way. I try and focus on the things that I do wrong. We were talking about a command class or something the other day, and a training that we were doing, and we had just a routine auto accident. It was a good accident, but it was just a routine auto accident. And I literally sat there, we got back, I took a page of notes on the things that I did wrong on a routine auto accident, and I shared that with my crew, and went over it. It's like, these are the things that I got to do better at. And, when you're the leader, you're the guy that's looking at yourself, it makes it so everybody around you is more comfortable looking at themselves as well. And, that's just one aspect of it. But if you can do that with your faith, you can do that with your marriage, you can do that as a parent, you can do that with all these things, and just kind of build a system that the first place that I look at is me. And then we'll figure out where everything else fits in, at that. I mean, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
So Matt, in the firehouse or in the fire service in general, if you've got any kind of, rank or leadership, you're somebody's or everybody's marriage counselor or, therapist or whatever. Would you say that the way you counsel people changed after you kind of had that radical encounter with God?
Yeah, it increased dramatically. And I think it's just a humility thing, weird story. And, I got to be careful about how I say it, because anybody that knows me is going to know the people involved. But, and you just talk, I mean, this isn't, my wife came up with this. Like, I'm going to tell you, I'm not that smart. I'll work really hard, but I'm not that smart. So we had a couple friends that was going through some just hard times. Let's just leave it at that. They were going through some hard times and some life-changing things. And we happened to be at another couple's house, and we were just all talking about life and marriage and this and that. And like, at no point did I see any of this coming. All right. You got to understand, like, at no point, like, I was as blindsided as you can get over all of this. But we were trying to figure out, like, what do we do? How do we handle this? Because it's really against our faith, and we didn't really agree with the way and the path they were going down. But my wife said to me, she's like, Matt, she goes, I don't think that, because I think if we close, we're the only Christian people these guys talk to, these two couples. We're the only ones that they talk to. And if we judge them, and if we are, we're not going to talk to you guys anymore, whatever, then we close the door for God, versus, being understanding. And, so the situation that I was put in that counselor form, and I mean, you can see behind me, like, man, everything that I do is like I celebrate manhood. I mean, it's like a holiday in my house that lasts 365 days. And I, you're put into a situation where somebody calls you and you're like, man, I would have never thought that I was the person that was going to get this phone call, but it worked out that way. So, as much as I disagree with what you're doing, where I stand on things, and how my beliefs are. We're still going to be really good friends. I'm still going to love you. You can still call me anytime you want. But I disagree with what you're doing, and I'm going to pray for you that, we work through that. So that's a whole lot different than in before, where they knew they were going to get, I'm going to make fun of you for the next 12 hours until you either change your mind or start crying and quit, or whatever. So, that was super vague, and I got to be super vague because I don't want to get myself or anybody else in trouble. But, it was just, my wife and I looked at it from a counseling side of it, I don't think there's a lot of things that I think we're going to be judged really harshly for. And man, one of the things that really scares me is that I'm going to do something to turn somebody away from God. And that's one of those like boogaboos for me that I don't, it bothers me when I sin, and, you're like, oh man, what are you doing? You can't be doing that. Because I'm just so afraid that, what I'm going to say to somebody. And I mean, I was even nervous about doing this. It's like, man, I'm nowhere close to good enough to do something like that. I mean, I know tons of guys that they could talk circles around me on any of these topics, but I don't know. I mean, I just try to be humble when I counsel guys, and, I mean, pray for them, and you just hope that you leave the door open for them. It's not my job to grow the seed. Maybe I was just to plant the seed, and it's God's, it's His plan, and he'll grow it when it's time. And I mean, look at me. I mean, I didn't come to work that day expecting to have a profound godly moment that night. You don't know what's going to happen in somebody's life, that seed may be there, and it's going to take off then. So that's kind of the way I do the counseling things. Like, I hope I'll be praying for you, and you do, and you pray for them. So
yeah, I can speak to your question also a little bit, Drew. When I first met Matt, 20 years ago, if you would have asked me then, not that I knew anything because I was a kid, but if you would have asked me then, hey, if you were going through a really, really difficult time, would Matt be the guy you would call to counsel you through that? I would have been like, you are out of your freaking mind. This guy is an animal. He yells at me every day.
Yeah.
Like hard no. But then about 15 years later, I was going through a really hard time, and he was the guy I called. Like, the change is real, right? It is. It was a huge change. And I did call him, and just like he just said, that's what he did, counseled me, gave me godly wisdom, prayed for me, and we got through it. So pretty amazing.
That's awesome that, you say that, because I don't remember like any godly. I was just like, wow. I hope I can say something that touches somebody like that. That's really cool. It ain't me.
Well,
I can.
Well, I think guys, a lot of guys get hung up. Everyone that's a believer is in a position somewhere in their life to give counsel, right? Whether you've been saying it this whole podcast, you're not the guy and you were nervous about this, and there's guys that talk circles around you, but it's a perfect example. I am a living example of your counsel, right? In that moment, you were my counsel, and
yeah,
right, because it was the right thing. And I think a lot of guys get hung up and miss those opportunities to counsel people because they feel like they're not schooled enough, or they're not articulate enough, or they're, whatever the thing is. And I think just stepping out in faith and providing whatever you can provide, let God speak through you. And it might not be quoting Bible verses. It might just be some some life advice, right? That touches somebody and allows them to kind of see God through you, right? Just like you said, opening that door and letting God cultivate. And that's important. And I think a lot of guys miss those opportunities, and I think that applies to guys' kids a lot, right? Like, I think a lot of guys miss opportunities with their kids to just speak truth and speak God's word into them. I think that's a big problem, and that's a thing we're trying to talk to guys about. Like, we all talk about reaching people for Jesus, but most of us have people right in our own house, and are we reaching them?
Yeah. I that's one of the biggest fears that I have. Like, when I actually have to stand before God, I worry about, did I do enough for my kids? Did I say the right things? Because Brendan, when they were all little and very impressionable, I was not the man that I am now, and I really, if there's something that I have fear of, like true, genuine fear, that's it. It's not that I'm not afraid of anything, but there's a difference between, I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt and afraid of hell. Like, those are two different fears. And when you sit there and you really deep down think about the fact that you're gonna stand before God and you're gonna answer for this, man, that makes the hair on my back just cringe, man. Because you just think about all the things that you've said to your kids, and the way you said it, and the mistakes that you made. And I had a conversation with my oldest daughter one time, and it's like, that's the thing that scares me the most is, have I said something that would have caused you to have a lesser relationship with God? Because I think I'm going to answer for that. But at the time, you did the best you could, and I think maybe there's just a little bit of that is involved in it as well. It's like, boy, I made a lot of mistakes, and a lot of decisions that I had to make, and it was the best decision I could make at the time. I'm not saying it was right. That's the part that you just gotta eat it. But it was the best decision I could make at the time, and you guys deal with that. You guys all know that. That's being a father. It's being a husband. That's just part of it.
Yeah, I think that, one of the biggest things that I've noticed in my personal walk is that, you know, take the firehouse, for example, right? Like, we started a Bible study on shift. And man, when we did the first one and I said, has anybody here not heard the gospel before? I was very surprised at how many people raise their hand, and these are people that I know and conversate with day in and day out. And to me, that's like, oh man, I dropped the ball. And then you think back to home, and it's kind of like football, man. You leave it all on the field, but when you go back in the locker room, kind of like when you come home from work or wherever else, you know, this is just as much as the mission field at home as it is out there. And um, I could die tomorrow, and I hope that my kids have got something from me that they'll continue to go on and plant those seeds like you were talking about earlier. And I mean, in the fire service, man, I'm sure you've seen dozens of, maybe hundreds of young guys come in, just completely lost, kind of how you feel like maybe you used to be a completely different person. And hopefully we can see them evolve and grow into these mature men of faith.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have, I've definitely had the opportunity and it's just because of years, I mean, it's just because I've been there longer. You see people come in and it's like, that guy he was this when he got here, and now, look at him. So you always see that. But it's crazy. I mean, I was just thinking about what you said of, we spend a lot of time worrying about the people outside the house, when really, and I've always told my kids this, it's like, I really have one job on this planet. Like I have one and one only, and that's to see to it that you three are taken care of. And, I mean, that was, I think, it's one of those things that I think as a man, that's your job. And I mean, it clearly, tells us that's your job, is to take care of this family and raise them up. And, it's one of those things that just always scares me. Did I do enough? Like you say, I mean, did I say the right things to my kids? Do I say enough to my kids? If I left here tonight, did I do enough? Did I leave enough of an impression to make sure that they can make it and understand where their faith is and understand where their humility is, and, all of that. I don't know if you ever get that answered, to be honest with you. It's scary.
Probably not, I would say.
I would say not. I mean, my kids are grown now. I mean, my youngest is 18, and my oldest is married. The other one's, my middle daughter's gone. She's in college, and you always sit there and think. And my mom, I never forget my mom telling us this. She came to say, I don't know if you guys have pizza on Saturday nights, but up here every Saturday night's pizza night, and we started years back. We do family pizza. Like every third Saturday is family pizza night. So the families come in, and my mom came in one night, and we were all just sitting out on the back ramp, just talking. And, it's kind of cool when your mom's sitting there talking to a group of firemen, which, my mom's about as cool as they come. So it didn't bother me, and they all were listening. And we all had young kids at that time. All of our kids were about the same age. They're probably 10 and under. And she looks at us all and she goes, you think you worry about your kids right now, wait until they're grown. Then you really worry about them, because you have no control over what they do. Right now, you can control everything that goes on in their life. Once they're grown, your hands off now. And man, I didn't realize how true that is until my kids are grown, and, and you see them making decisions, and it's like, boy, you played this hand 18 years ago, and, you played it for 18 years. And it's like, boy, I sure hope I did right. Cause you don't know, you just don't know. They got to make their own decisions and make their own walks. And, I guess you just do the same thing my mom did for us, is just pray every night that they'll get it together. And it did.
And it's a good reminder that we don't do the saving.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Thank God we don't do the saving, because we would probably jack that up.
Yeah.
No, probably. Not a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's next for you, Maddie?
man, I don't really have any real big plans. I'm closing out on 30 years, and I got like 3 more years. So I really, as far as Firehouse wise, I want to go out strong. I talked to a good friend of mine. He's a lieutenant on the other shift, and I ask him regularly to keep me encouraged. I don't want to be one of those guys that coasted home. I can't stand that. And I didn't realize how easy it was to do that, but I don't want to do that. I want to come in, or I want to go out the same way I came in, and really, go out on my terms and driving and fighting the whole way. I love to train, I love to teach, and so doing that and spending more time with my family and that kind of stuff. But I still got some time left. I'm not checked out yet. I still want to go. So
I believe that.
What do you think is next on your faith journey? Like,
I
go ahead.
I've really, the things that kind of stick out in my mind is, when I leave either the fire service or when I get to a point where I slow down, did you really make an impact on somebody's life? And that's kind of where I find myself thinking, how did you really impact? And are you really changing somebody's life? I mean, it's like, you go on runs and it's like, yeah, you know how it is. I mean, 1 in 10,000 runs is like the one that you impacted. The rest of them are just, yeah, you were there and you wasn't as terrible and, as you could have been and whatever. So I look at things. I mean, I watched that movie about the children being, sold as sex slaves and all. It's like, man, that guy made a difference in life. You know what I mean? Like he's actually, like, he's changing people's lives. So I think about stuff like that. It's like, what can I do to actually change people's lives? And that, I mean, even talking to you guys, it's like, man, if I would have said something or could have said something to help somebody, that would really be awesome to me, because there's just so little, little opportunities, to really reach people a lot without just, I don't know, just not really that guy, I guess. I'm not going to stand out on the street corner and grab people as they come by. But yeah, I'm really just looking for that opportunity. I don't know what it is. I mean, I know when Brendan brought this to me, I'm like, yeah, heck yeah, I want to be a part of that, because I just think you can actually impact somebody. You know what I mean? If that makes, if that
makes perfect sense.
But I think there's more to, I was a good firefighter, or he was a good officer, or he was a good instructor. That's cool. That was a nice job and that was neat. But I think impacting people's lives and moving them in a way that they can be saved, or moving them in a way that they can be a better person to help the next generation. I think that's probably, I don't know what that looks like, but I'm more interested in that than I am anything else.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, brother, that's what we're here trying to do.
Yeah.
We're trying to get the message out. We're trying to talk to guys like you that, you will reach people through this. Maybe it's one guy. The three of us, when we started doing this thing, we talked about it, and we're putting a lot of time and effort and all that worldly crap into this stuff. And at the end of the day, if we reach one person and it helps them along in their path and it helps them find God, then all worth it. That's,
I'm telling you, you'd have no idea who they are. I had a situation that, and again, I know you go back to the counseling at the firehouse. You want to talk about getting blindsided. Whoa. Somebody brought something to me and they confided in me, and I was just like, are you kidding me? And I said, I'll be praying for you and whatever. And I just went about it, Brendan, how it is. And, it was the same thing. I was just like blown away. I didn't know what to do. And I said, I'll be praying for you. And, if you want to pray right now, we will. And we did. And that was really it. I was done. Like, I was like, I don't know what else to tell you. That sucks, and I just kind of walked away from it. And then I kid you not, like I was going through, my wife and I were trying to figure out how we were to handle some things and, what we should do spiritually, how we should encourage people. And I can't make this up. It was 10 minutes till 12, almost midnight. And I get a text message from this person, which like I haven't spoke to this person in like 3 years. And at 10 till 12, I get a text message. Hey, I just wanted to thank you for the conversation we had several years ago at that fire. And, I attempted suicide and it wasn't successful, obviously. And I turned my life around and I was baptized. And sometimes God puts it on my heart to reach out to people. And this is one of those weird times. And I'm just like, what? And I'm sitting there just elbowing my wife. I'm like, hey, wake up. Wait, look at this. Because you don't realize that you're touching somebody. You have no clue that it's reaching anybody. You just think, I don't know, I'm just a big hillbilly that talk to folks and, cool, neat, glad it helped you. And then 3 years later at almost midnight, somebody reaches out and said, hey, 3 years ago, you said something to me and it really stuck when I was laying on the floor of a hospital room, crying my eyes out, begging God not to take my life. And you're just like, what? I said that? No way. Really? I don't remember that. But, so you don't know. I mean, you don't know who you're going to talk to, and you don't know who you're going to reach. And, man, I just encourage you guys to keep on doing it. I think the world needs it. I think the men in this world need it. I truly think that. You just never know. I think we have great relationships, and that's because we have equal wives and husbands and that kind of thing. But I think God's put it on us to, you're responsible. You can think that you're not, but you're responsible. So
yeah, I wanted to say to that, Matt, you said a handful of times, like, you're not the right guy. But you want to impact lives. You're not really sure how. And like, you've given a couple examples actually of lives that maybe you don't even realize that you've impacted. And Brendan, I don't know where he is on y'all's screen, but Brendan himself like said that he was, in a difficult place and struggling, and you spoke into his life. And that little seed that you don't even remember. This guy's putting on podcasts and creating content on the internet, speaking to people about Jesus now. Like you just never know. And you yourself, that we're recording this for the world to see, and you being open and real and admitting like, dude, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm doing my part. I'm trying. Like, thousands of people will hear this, hopefully. And if, again, one of those guys, maybe you changed their life. You have no idea. It might be more than one. It might be a couple. It might be a lot. And so I think that it should be encouraging to everyone that hears this to speak out, to see your example of the change that you've had, even, as humble as you feel, like you have made an impact by being a godly man and speaking with that intent to other men. And you should continue that mission, and you can help us by being here, tell more men that they should be doing the same thing. And like, we will change the world together. That is what we are doing. Even if it's a little bit, we're fixing to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I really do. It's hard for me to see it that way, but
we'll get you there.
Yeah, I was just one of the guys that I reached out to pray for me before this. He was like, you just have a different way of touching people. I was like, well, I just talk to them like normal folks. I ain't anybody. I'm a hillbilly kid that likes to hunt and fish, and that's about it. And Brendan, I'm sure, has told you guys, it's like, it's that cut and dry. We're going to work hard, and we're going to go shoot some big bucks and shoot some ducks. And, that's good. So.
Well, Matt, we sincerely appreciate you coming on here. This is a big deal. It's awesome for us. It's going to be great. There's a lot of guys out there that are that are in a place that need to hear somebody like you talk. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. We will do it again. And we look forward to what's coming next.
Yeah, I really appreciate it and completely humbled by it. And, I just hope that I can hold up my end of the bargain, man. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So looking
All right,
forward
guys.
to get back up here to Ohio so I can see your big old beard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Thanks,
All right,
Matt.
guys.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. You did awesome, Matty.
Great job, man.
Yeah.
And
Dude, that was great. That was perfect.
I'm gonna restart this recording and then I'm gonna cut the live stream. So everybody, there's still people watching the live stream. Thank you guys for being on the live stream very much. And
Oh, yeah.
we'll ship out clips and whatnot in the near future.